in the end, it comes out to Tom James. Good job! Oh, what a goal! What a goal from Tom James! Oh, that was special!
Good evening and a very warm welcome to Orient Live here in the E10 studio. The long-awaited return of the EFL Trophy is over and we're back with an away fixture as the O's travel to Priestfield Stadium and face Neil Harris's Gillingham FC. And I'm delighted to be joined here in the studio by journalist Brendan Pitcher and another journalist, Andrew Butler. Boys, us three, we just love this competition and it's great to be back and a good opportunity for to put Saturday behind us and give a few players some minutes and hopefully get a few goals.
That's the key thing. We've got to put Saturday behind us. I think first and foremost, I know people have their own different views on this competition, what value it holds, but obviously Richie, as we'll come on to, has picked a very, very strong team and not only is it wanting to progress in this tournament, but it's also really pushing on because Saturday was, you know, it was tough. It was tough. It was really, you know, it was not a good performance. It was men against boys, really. Stevenage kind of have our number really and did a number on us. And it wasn't a great day to be here at Brisbane Road. However, we've got a good chance to put that right in a competition that we can and should be looking to progress in against a team who we again should be looking to beat.
Richie may have picked a strong side, Brendan, but he won't be in the dugout this evening. Following from that unsuccessful appeal, he'll be missing today and Saturday's game against Exeter. Maybe not the worst fixture him to have as one of the games that he misses, though, and a good chance for Paul Terry and Matt Harrell to take charge, as they often do in this competition.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where sometimes you give the shared responsibility to the coaching team, so it's not the worst one to miss out on. On the team, I think it's an interesting one because we saw with Richie's approach last season, look, he would change the team and maybe if one or two players played really well, they might make their way into Saturday's team. I think this year, I don't think Richie's 100% on what his best first 11 is at the minute. So if you play well today, 7-8 players play well, you could see him starting on Saturday. So there's so much competition for places. It's up for grabs at the minute and we're seeing players for the first time in probably Brandon Cooper and Max Sanders properly starting games. We're going to see them up close for the first time. It's going to be a good judge and a good test against a solid League Two side in Gillingham.
Well, as Brendan has just alluded to, there has been a handful of changes made by Richie Williams for this evening fixture. So let's take a look at how the O's are lining up this evening. In goal, keeping his place from Saturday and hopefully will be able to keep a clean sheet is number 1, Sol Bryn. We believe he'll be playing in the wide position this evening. Number 9, Joe Pigott. Making his first start for the club is the debutant on loan from Swansea, number 12, Brandon Cooper. Number 14, he's playing in the number 10 role tonight, is George Moncur. Leading the line is number 17, Shaq Ford, returning from illness. And wearing the armband again is number 18, Darren Pratley. Partnering Cooper is number 19, Omar Beckles. He's been man of the match for the last couple of games and he's starting at right back again tonight. It's number 22, Ethan Galbraith. Number 32, Rob Hunt starts at left back and also joining the attack is the right-sided forward, we believe, tonight. Number 34, Charlie Pegram. And on the bench for the O's is Tom James, Ruel Sotiriou, Theo Archibald, Sam Howes, Idris El Mazouni, Jordan Graham and Zach Obiero. So that is how the O's are lining up against Gillingham this evening. And we've said a lot about, or I've just said how players are playing where we believe they might be playing, but there's a few unknowns in there.
Yeah, there are a couple of unknowns. I think the ones that really stand out is how Ford and Pigott are going to be playing, whether or not they're going to be playing together in a two. As far as it looks like, it might be that Joe Pigott plays out in one of the wide positions and Shaq Ford maintains his position up top by himself. But I don't know, we've had this a couple of times this season where we've made theories about where players might be playing or might be starting, and then we've seen as soon as they line up, it's something slightly different. But it will be interesting to see Joe Pigott coming back onto the first 11. I know his career at the O's hasn't really got off to the start that he probably wouldn't have wanted, but seeing him and Ford line up together will be will be an interesting one. Nice to see Charlie Pegram get the start as well, get the nod. He's a very exciting player. Looks like another academy player who might excel at the club. And I think these sort of games are the ones where you have to earmark as wanting to impress the coaching staff, wanting to impress the manager, but also showing the fans what you're about as well.
We'll take a closer look at Pegram in a minute, but let's stick on that Shaq Ford and Joe Pigott, because I think Shaq has looked quite impressive when he's played. He got a goal on his first start, and he drops deep, he looks quick, he's energetic. And Joe Pigott, he's played out on the left before, I believe, for Portsmouth. So it's an interesting one about who's going to offer what in today's lineup. Yeah,
I think you look at Joe Pigott and you wouldn't instinctively say he's a natural kind of wide player, but from what we've seen so far, he's good at linking the play and dropping deep for more of a runner like a Shaq Ford to run off him. So perhaps those two playing together, look, it might be Pigott out wide, it might be some sort of, they can dovetail with him and Moncur in the 10. Pigott can drop a bit more central, but I think you're right in saying that relationship between the two could be key, because it's two kind of forward-thinking players, and we might see the best of Pigott when he's not quite a central number 9 who's going to be the spearhead of the attack, the one trying to run in behind and do the things that Shaq Ford is so good at. I think he's going to be best when he drops a little bit deeper and he can link the play that way. So I'm interested to see, obviously, first of all, where and how that system lines up, but also very, very interested to see how Pigott and Ford interlink and whether it sees kind of an improved performance from Joe Pigott in a more deeper position.
And no matter the competition, a goal for him would be, I'm sure, very welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've seen before in this division with Wimbledon, we're probably about a similar stature to where Wimbledon were at the time. He just caught fire. He got 17 goals for Wimbledon in League One, had a couple of moves to bigger League One clubs in Ipswich and Portsmouth where he didn't play a great deal. I think he might be one of those players. I get the suspicion that he just needs kind of a run of games and also maybe to get him going, just to go out of nothing, just to kickstart his Orient career, and then we might see kind of the confidence return and him become that player again, because it's difficult when you've had kind of 2 seasons basically as a bit part player when you've come from Wimbledon and been the main man. And
it's going to be key that the attackers around him provide chances both for him and for Shaq. And you've already mentioned Pegram. We know what Moncur can provide to a team, and you've already said how exciting Pegram could be. So it's interesting that they could both probably play anywhere across that 3 behind the striker. So it'll be interesting how they shape up and interlink tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, with someone like Moncur, he's such a player who can unlock defences, and it's quite exciting to see him in a number 10. Can he play those killer passes through to a player like Ford, who's got that pace, who go and get in behind? Can Pegram unlock those on that defence? Because he from what we've seen, and I know we've seen very little of him in a senior Orient shirt, but for the academy and for youth levels, he's that type of player who kind of just sees gaps where very few other players can see them. So if they can get on the ball, if they're allowed the time on the ball, I think that's something that if you're looking at how to defend against both of them, you want to be on their first touch immediately. But if they're allowed the time on the ball, then hopefully they will be able to provide some chances for Ford and perhaps Pigott if he's coming in off the other flank.
Pratley and Max Sanders are the 2 holding midfielders, I believe, or the 2 8s, the 2 4s. I'm not sure how you'd call it in this system, but slightly different to what we've seen in the last couple of games where we've had Idris El Mazouni and Jordan Brown playing there. What do you think they'll bring to this side tonight?
Yeah, really interested to see Sanders, because he's looked bright in his few substitute appearances so far. He is a League One player. He's played at League One for a few seasons now. Probably didn't get as many minutes as he would have liked at Lincoln, but seems composed, has come from a good academy in Brighton that was a Premier League level and Category 1. So he has all of those good traits of a central midfielder, that they're always aware, they're tidy on the ball, and their positioning is good. And then also, I think our downfall maybe against Stevenage, and I think Richie kind of alluded to it, was we lacked that kind of experience, that game management side, and I think Richie was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place when we just had such a good performance against Cambridge and he couldn't really change it. But in himself, perhaps he needed those experienced bodies in there, and that's what Pratley will bring. I think he's been out with illness, so hopefully he's back fit and ready, because himself and Beckles and Moncur, I think they're going to be key for these next month or so to try and get us through this rocky period we've been in, starting into League One. Just being calm heads, providing that experience, knowing when to slow the game down, just giving instructions on the pitch, all those key intangible things, because we've got a lot of very good technical young players. I think we just need some kind of more older, experienced players through the spine of the team, knitting it all together. And,
that'll be needed in a game like tonight. We'll come on to Gillingham shortly, but it's a Neil Harris side. Direct Football's Kenny Jackett. We probably know what they're going to bring. So to have Darren Prattley wearing the armband again tonight, and of course Omar Beckles coming back into the side, that's big.
Yeah, massively so, and also let's be honest. I know it doesn't feel like it at this stage of the season, because we can see that Gillingham are third in League Two, and we're kind of struggling towards the bottom half or the bottom of the of League One. So it doesn't feel like in terms of kind of pure league position there's not much to choose between us. But at the end of the day, we are in the league above them. It's a game we should be expecting to win, and hopefully that class kind of shines through.
And we've mentioned Omar Beckles there as well, and he's partnering Brandon Cooper. Trying really hard not to say Bradley every time you say his name, but we've got some highlights of him here. It's an interesting one. Richie's obviously felt as though we need to have something slightly different in the centre-back positions, and what do you think it is that he'll bring?
Well, from what we know of him, a great deal of solidity at the back. I think for fans who've been with the club for long enough, well, they don't even need to be for that long, but Alex Mitchell is a player that springs to mind. He gets his head to everything, but I think what he's probably got over someone like Mitchell is that he is a ball playing centre back as well. So he'll get stuck in. From what he says and what he's kind of the way that he's described his own game is that you'll hear him pretty much wherever you are in the stadium, because he'll shout a lot. He'll get his head on the end of hopefully every single ball, and he talks a good game, and hopefully he's a player who can add just that kind of that bit of that steel to a backline which has been it's been a bit ropey, and it's unfamiliar to us because we were so fortunate last season with how solid our backline was, and keeping that clean, record number of clean sheets. That you look at the defence and you think, okay, maybe we do just need a little bit more back there, and a good chance for him to come to a new club. He's on loan from Swansea. He was on loan at Forest Green last season, but come to a new club and a new challenge for him, and he's still young. So hopefully he'll add a little bit more, but also it's the same with bringing anyone on loan. It adds a bit of competition to places. I'm sure at the start of the season you'd expect Beckles and Happy to be the starting lineup, but then you sign Ed Turns and now Cooper's in there. These are it's good to have that competition for places. It means that people can't rest too easy on their places, and the way that we have started defensively so far this season, quite clearly some of those changes need to be made.
Just a quick mention for Ethan Galbraith at right back then in that defence, because he isn't probably a right back first and foremost, but he's looked so good there, and hopefully with a couple of solid centre backs next to him, he can flourish even further.
Yeah, he is exactly what Richie wants in a fullback. We've seen with Tom James and Rob Hunt, they're extremely technical. They're very good on the ball first and foremost, as well as being good defenders. So I think Richie has no problem sticking him there, and he's had a great upbringing. Look, he's been through the United Academy. He was highly rated at United, and he's got that kind of football brain that I think Richie feels he can probably just slot in and do a job at right back, even if it's a position that's unfamiliar for him. I think he's probably might not have started this game if Jaden Sweeney had passed the concussion protocol, but it's another opportunity to stake his claim, because obviously Rob Hunt is back in the fold, Tom James is on the bench, as I mentioned, Sweeney's coming back, so there's competition for places in that fullback role, and we've got lots of numbers in midfield. So if he's looking to try and kind of get Galbraith into the team alongside the numerous midfielders we've got, then maybe he's looking just to put him in at right back because he wants a player of that quality in the team no matter where he plays.
Well, we're hoping it's going to be a real thriller this evening. And of course, don't forget, if you're watching on live on our YouTube stream, then tonight is available to stream in the UK as well as internationally. So head over to the website that's on screen now to pick up your streaming pass. And on the same website, you can also pick up your audio pass or your match streaming pass if you're an international fan for this Saturday's game, as we travel to St James's Park. Unfortunately, not the one in the northeast, but the one down south in Brendan's homeland of Exeter. So that's a big fixture as we return back to league action. So make sure you get behind the boys there as well. But now let's reminisce a little bit. And while we're on the subject of reminiscing, we've got a great book here written by Dave Victor and Neil Silver, which is available in the club shop, talking about how the O's became champions. £24.99 if you're wondering. But tonight's ground is where that was kind of sealed. And you can't talk about an away fixture at Gillingham without reminiscing on these scenes a little bit.
No, it will go down in history when that evening. An unconventional, I think, way to go about business. But what ended up being one of the best nights of all of our lives, I'm sure. Brendan was there in person. We were there. We were here in the studio itself. And I think for us all equally, it meant something different and it meant something unique. And you know, our experience being back in the studio, not what was going on with the floodlight failure, and I'm sure it was the same for Brendan there in the stadium itself. But to come back on the pitch, knowing that you've still promotion, was remarkable. Kind of only that could happen to a club like ours to get back from where we were a few seasons before, to get back into League One in such a manner was spectacular. But it was a very, very special night. Hopefully tonight will be a good place to go back to for some of these players, because they would have had some great memories of that evening. But it was amazing.
There's a video on the club's official Twitter of the dressing room tonight lined up with all the kits, and all I could envisage was Lawrence Vigouroux singing Wagon Wheel and spraying champagne all over the gaff. So, it's going to be a slightly different atmosphere in there tonight, you expect. And also hopefully a different result itself, because I'm talking about how good the evening was. But Omar Beckel's got himself sent off. The result wasn't great. Hopefully we can kind of maybe right that wrong a little bit.
Yeah, but also a great reminder of what we were. I know it's only been, a month into the season, but when you start to lose these games, your confidence drops a little bit. And for those lads Beckles is playing today, even though he got sent off in that league game, but fond memories I'm sure he'll have. Rob Hunt, George Moncur, those kind of players who were playing that day and will remember the celebrations. Just a little bit of a confidence boost, hopefully, to remember, look, we dominated League Two last season. We were a very, very good football team. We still are very good football players. Let's put things right tonight.
Well, hopefully it will be a victory for the O's tonight. And of course, if it isn't a victory and it's a draw, then penalties is on the cards. But hopefully we won't need to get that far. But let's take a look at how the home side are lining up this evening. And it's a slightly different look side for the Gills as well. Under their new ownership, they've been spending a lot of money, making a lot of signings, and some big names in there, including 4 ex-Orient players. And the first one in between the sticks wearing the gloves is number 1, Glenn Morris. We have number 2, Shay Alexander. Number 3, Max Clark. The captain, number 4, Connor Masterson. Number 8, Johnny Williams. Number 14, Robbie McKenzie. Number 17, Jaden Clark. The second ex-Orient player is number 18, Ethan Coleman. Number 22, we just sold him to the Gills in the summer, is Shad Oji. Number 23, Connor Mahoney. And a real legend of Leyton Orient Football Club, but hopefully he will be forgetting where the goal is tonight. Is number 45, Macaulay Bonn. And on the bench for the Gills is Jake Turner, Max Amer, Ashley Nadzine, Scotty Malone, Joe Gabodi, Matty McCarthy and Josh Chambers. So that is how they'll be lining up at the Priestfield Stadium this evening. And there's a lot of familiar names in there. Hopefully none of them will come back to haunt us.
Yeah, it's an interesting side, Gillingham, because they've spent, like you said, a lot of money. I think they've got new ownership and finally it looks like things have turned. I think Neil Harris is a very, very good manager for League Two level. They've got that kind of experience in the back room as well, with Andy Hessenthaler and Kenny Jackett doing roles upstairs. So it seems like a good setup. They've got a very, very good squad on paper. They started the season very well, getting a great result in the Carabao Cup as well. Kind of dipped off a little bit recently, but we kind of saw it at the end of last season in the game we're talking about, where they're a side that are pretty happy to concede possession. They're very good defensively, they're very direct, they know what they're about, and they're very well drilled in their role. So it's going to be a tough test today. They're not going to give it to us. It's not going to be a walkover, but it's one where I think we can do our best and hopefully get a result.
Statistically, their best rated player this season has been Shadrach Oji, playing at centre back. As I remember you loved so dearly, he was the most fouled player in League Two.
Most fouled defender, I think. Yeah. Third most fouled player at one point.
It's weird that you see him as a danger from centre back almost.
I think Shad, we made the decision to let him go, and I think probably, in hindsight, some fans will go, look, he's playing so well at Gillingham now, and at the end of the day, he made 10 appearances, in less than 400 minutes for us for the club last season, only 3 starts. I mean, personally, I liked him as a player, always quite enjoyable to watch, and because he came through the academy, it always feels like a shame to lose such a player. But I'm really pleased that he's gone on to excel at another club, because I think we all knew that he had there was certainly a player in there, and so it's very good to see him do well. Obviously, I don't want him to do that well this evening, but it's funny, you look through the entire Gillingham team, and those 4 players that we've mentioned that used to play for us, is almost like 4 different eras of the club. Glenn Morris, who I remember playing, I still can't believe he's still playing. I mean, I know he won't forgive me for saying that, but I was watching him when I was a boy, and he's still playing at a very decent level of football. Shad, who we've just spoken about, Ethan Coleman, whose career here didn't quite set on fire, it's fair to say, and then Macaulay Bonne up top, who we've got incredibly fond memories of.
We certainly do. What a guy Macaulay Bonne is. He's a great striker, but some great memories of what he did here in an Orient shirt, firing us back into the Football League.
Yeah, you know what you're going to get from Macaulay Bonne. He's a great runner. He'll press from the front. He'll run the channels, and he's also one of those players that gets into really, really good goal scoring positions. And when he takes those chances, he looks like a world beater. I think seeing some of his goals for Charlton now, when he had that great spell when he left us, and he went from the National League to the Championship, and I think he got around 10, 12 goals in the Championship that season for Charlton. Kind of hasn't worked out for him since. He's had to drop down the leagues a little bit, a struggle for game time at clubs like Ipswich, and then return to Charlton in League One. And now he's at Gillingham in League Two, and I'm sure he'll be hungry to kind of prove the point that he's perhaps a little bit better than League Two. And I think he's perhaps unfortunate to find himself there, because I think he's more than good enough to still play a role at League One level. And I think he's, unfortunately for him, also had a job on his hands getting into this Gillingham side. I think this is only his second start, and again, like we've said about our team, Gillingham sides, the changes that they've made, like Macaulay Bonne, are going to be desperate to kind of prove their point and try and stake a place for their league game on Saturday.
How do you imagine the Gills to be setting up tonight against us? We've kind of alluded to the fact that you've got the likes of Kenny Jackett, Neil Harrison, and Andy Hessenthaler there. It's a very recognisable names and a recognisable style of football, you'd imagine.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be direct. It's probably going to be 4-2-3-1, looking at the personnel, and it's not just like Macaulay Bonne or Shadoji or any of the ex-Orient players. There's some really handy players. Johnny Williams, we saw him last season in League Two. When he's fit and firing and on the ball, he's as good as anything at League Two, maybe even League One level. He's played in the Championship, in the Premier League, in the European Championships for Wales, and even players like Conor Mahoney, who I think went for a couple £1 million to Millwall, and he's found his way back down to his former managers in Kenny Jackett and Neil Harris at Gillingham now. So I think, like you say, that pool of having Neil Harris, Andy Hessenthaler, Kenny Jackett, they've got a great contacts book, and they're using it to put together a really strong side in Gillingham. And
it's weird how the poetry writes itself in football. I've just realised, I think it was Johnny Williams who fired Swindon into the lead, meaning we got the promotion in that night under defeat to Gillingham. It's written in the stars. Tonight is an absolute spectacle.
It's incredible, because Ollie, we were talking about this earlier, and I don't think you have any recollection of that night, but it is, very poetic, of course, and I mean, Brendan's absolutely right. He's a class player, and Gillingham are, they are a club seemingly on their way up. I mean, let's bear in mind, I think halfway through last season, before January, when they were taken over by their new ownership, they were bottom, or at least second bottom of League Two, and looking absolutely desperate. I think they scored, six goals in their first 20-odd games. I mean, it was an awful time for the Gills, but they're on their way back up, and they'll be buoyant, and certainly looking at a competition like this and a game like this to just keep on their momentum, and we've just got to be level to and match them for it.
Well, there's not long to go now until kick-off, so of course don't forget, if you're watching along live on the YouTube stream, then head over to the Match Centre to pick up your streaming pass to watch along, because tonight it's available for UK and international fans. So make sure you join Dave Victor and Matt Hiscock for that one as they bring you all of the action. But now let's remind ourselves of how the O's are lining up this evening's fixture. So there has been a handful of changes, but keeping his spot in goal is number 1, Sol Bryn. In the attack tonight is number 9, Joe Pigott. Making his first start for the club is number 12, Brandon Cooper. In another attacking position is number 14, George Moncur. Leading the line this evening, we believe, is number 17, Shaq Ford. Returning from illness and getting that armband back on is number 18, Darren Pratley. Partnering Cooper is number 19, Omar Beckles. In at right back, he was man of the match for the last couple of weeks, and he's at right back again tonight. It's number 22, Ethan Galbraith. Starting alongside Darren Pratley in the heart of midfield is number 23, Max Sanders. At left back is number 32, Rob Hunt. And taking up that final attacking spot is number 34, Charlie Pegram. And on the bench for the O's is Tom James, Ruel Sotiriou, Theo Archibald, Sam Howes, Idris El Mazouni, Jordan Graham and Zach Obiero. So, quite a strong bench there as well. We're starting to see a lot of players come back from illness, and hopefully tonight we'll give them those vital minutes to hopefully continue where we left off at Cambridge, and we can just ignore Stevenage.
Yeah, a few new signings in there that probably haven't played as much as they would have liked. The likes of Sanders, I think he got injured in pre-season. Pigott, Ford, I think, was spoken about on Saturday in Richie's post-match as someone that he didn't feel was quite up to speed. So yeah, great chance for these players to get minutes under their belts and prove that they should be in the starting lineup at Exeter.
The ground is very slowly filling up in Priestfield Stadium. Can't imagine there'll be too many fans there tonight, probably not as much as the last time you visited, but what are you expecting from this fixture?
I hope it's a return to the sort of football that we were playing against Cambridge, that's for sure, because against Cambridge it was spectacular football. I remember we spoke about it at the time, but then Saturday's fixture was kind of bizarre after having such a high, coming off the high of beating Cambridge like that. To play in the manner we did against Stevenage was slightly puzzling and quite frustrating, really. So hopefully today will be a return to doing what we've done best so far, and we haven't seen too much of it this season. But that game against Cambridge is certainly the one that we should be looking at as a model of how to get our wins. And hopefully a team like Gillingham will look at us as being like, oh, okay, they're perhaps there to be shot at because of the way that we've started our season, but our class, in theory, should see us through.
He may not be in the dugout, Brendan, but he will be wanting a win tonight. We've already said how Richie wants to go far in this competition, and you expect he'll be giving his all tonight, I think, probably from the stands?
Yeah, I hope so. A really good test as well with Gillingham, because we've struggled against these kind of direct sides like Portsmouth and Stevenage so far. So Gillingham are that kind of football, and hopefully it's a good test for us that we can kind of prove that we can stand up to these sort of teams.
Well, the players are making their way out onto the pitch at the Priestfield Stadium. So it's time now to hand over to our commentary team of Dave Victor and Matt Hiscock.
Good evening and welcome to the Priestfield Stadium. What a contrast, of course, to when we were last here back in April. We lost on that occasion, of course. Omar Beckles saw red. He starts tonight. It was Johnny Williams who scored the all-important goal that evening. Not here. It was at Wiltshire, of course, at the county ground. And the former Welsh international starts tonight. I think, Matt, it's an indication of the strength of the squad at the moment. That 8 changes for the O's, but it still seems like a very, very strong starting 11. 4 who start tonight, featured on that famous night back in April. 8 of the players from that night are in the squad. The O's in all red, Gillingham in the blue shirts with the white shorts and the white socks, as we struggle to make ourselves